we shy away from this. And it's something that is very common, especially for researchers and people in academics. We just see the success story. We don't really see what happens behind the scene. We don't know that there is a lot of rejections, there is a lot of depression, a lot of fear, a lot of things that happens, especially when you are used to succeeding in life, and suddenly these things tends to hit a rock bottom. It begins to like make you to reflect if you are good enough, if you're really where you're supposed to be. You ask yourself so many questions about life. So I thought it's a good thing to talk about it with you guys because it's okay to fail. It's not always I'm not this kind of person that like I told my younger niece one time because she showed me her I think first semester result, and it wasn't that impressive as she expected. And she was like, "Uncle, I really wanted to break your record, and all that." And I was like, "You can't be me." And it's very okay for you to fail. Don't feel depressed. Don't feel like I will yell at you and all that. I was like, "No, no, no, I'm not that kind of person." And I began to talk to her and encourage her and tell her, "You shouldn't worry about these things." So what is failure? What does it mean? We've been hearing a lot of about it, you know, but generally we know that failure comes from when something doesn't work the right way we want it to work. It could be in the aspects of life, it could be in relationships, it could be in businesses, it could be in different spheres of life, even in marriage, even in your destiny, your career, and everything. Everything, for me, I would say my first experience of what failure means started when I was very, very young. Probably class four when I was growing up. Yeah, I think class three, no, class four precisely. So there was this girl in my that came to join us called Debatuma Azu, if I remember correctly. You see, I don't forget the name, it sticks actually. So she joined us, and I was playful a lot, and I didn't take note of this lady because she came almost when the term was almost finishing and she took second. But I was still playing because I was used to taking first position, so I didn't scare. So when we got to class four, I continued doing my play. I play a lot of football, and even at home, I don't read. I just do my normal play because I knew like at the end of the term, I would recall everything that was taught, and then I'll still pass the exam and take first. But to my greatest surprise, this girl came first and I took second. That was a very big blow to me. And it's not just the fact that I took second, the fact that the way they giggled at me and laughed me to scorn, it was quite disturbing for me. And to her, it was a very important moment because everyone were, like I used to say, in Africa, we find it difficult working as a team. So there is always that one person that wanted to be the star at all costs. So they were happy that, oh, this guy has finally been defeated. We have seen that someone capable of, taking this position from him. So, but that's changed my life, kind of, because I remember the teacher then she called me and she talked to me. She was like, just look at how they were laughing at you. They're laughing at your God. Tony, you play too much. I want you to stop this play. Reflect on yourself. You're better than this. I know you. You can do this. So I told her, okay, I'm going to do something about it. So that was when I quit football and then I started working hard on myself. So failure is that negative outcome when we don't achieve the desired result, but it provides that opportunity for us to reflect on ourselves, to learn from our mistakes, and also to improve the future outcomes. It doesn't define us, but it is an experience that is meant to strengthen us. It's meant to be a determinant to make us to be more focused in pursuing our goal. So don't let the failure define you. Don't allow it to become a tag that should continue going up about with you. It should not be seen as the end, but a stepping stone to your success. Each time you fail, ask yourself, is this really worth me dwelling on and discouraging me from making future attempts? Because life itself is risky, and you must have the courage to confront these dangerous perspectives in order for you to truly understand what works and what is not working. Failure is inevitable. It's something we will confront with knowingly or even unknown in life. Every day we go out, some people, especially someone in business, they understood these terms very well because every day they have to go out, you know, it doesn't, they don't see market sometimes because maybe the weather is bad, because probably there is one economic indicator that was messed up with, especially when you're in Africa where the policies of government is very inconsistent. You would see a lot of changes in the metrics of your business. So whenever you're doing business, your business is really high prompt to risks that, sometimes you could go out, you could even see a sort of a clash or something that has come from religious intolerance and all that. The other day I saw a protest in Kenya and so many shops were looted and, stuff like that. So you see a lot of unpredictable things coming up, and all that. So it is inevitable. But in research like technologies like AI and data science, over 85% of projects don't get to the into production. So we get to have this whole disconnect with most of us scientists working in the lab and also with the experts in the field. So sometimes when you do a particular production, you will see it doesn't meet the expectation when you deploy it. Probably there are several reasons that contribute to some of these issues, such as biasness that is inherited in the data during when you're trying to gather the data. Sometimes the data quality itself is very poor. So because of some of these issues, if you train the model, remember the model is garbage in, garbage out. So at the end of the day, when you produce that model, it doesn't meet the expectation. Another thing is there is a distribution shift. Um, Most of the time, the testing set and the training set they follow a particular distribution shape. But the moment you deploy it to the field, the validation begins to misbehave because if there is, and I could give you a good example, the COVID. During COVID, we saw a lot of people were infected compared to people that were not. But after the COVID, the rate at which people were infected decreases and the asymptomatic persons were much. So by the time you do a model that has this high number of positive outcomes compared to the negative instances, the moment you deploy that kind of models to the field and the whole thing changed because the pandemic went down, people got vaccinated, people developed natural immune and all that. And then we begin to see them, they don't get infected. Even when they get infected, it's not really severe. And maybe you train your model to identify severe patients from and the other way around. So that kind of thing, you see that there is a swap. And once the model go to the field, it begins to really misbehave because the model was already trained to think that once it gets to the field, it will be seeing the same thing it had seen before. But now when it gets to the field, it doesn't see that. So sometimes the distribution shift contributes. Another issues could be from scalability. Well, we could see that in the subsequent slide. I think I did make emphasis on some of that. So most of the project don't get there. Then in entrepreneurship, many startups they fail early, and one of the reason is because if there is a need for that market in the first place, you know, um, I remember coming back from Kenya, I was feeling so excited. I wanted to start a consultancy firm in data analytics because there was market for it in Kenya. I remember then I would have to even be the one to turn down some of the jobs we were getting with some of my friends because I was also doing my master's. So reshuffling my time was quite important. So, but then when I came back to Nigeria, it was quite a challenge when I started the business. I didn't get that market, that audience like I saw in Kenya. So it was kind of difficult to break into the market for me. And at some point, I run out of funds. So I had to start looking for a job rather than trying to make the business work. So, but luckily for me, I think I got a job with ICANN, and then I did a bit before my PhD scholarship came up, and then I left back and all that. So, but that taught me a lesson that you don't just go about investing into a business that you don't even know if the need exists. Is there market for it? Because Nigeria is the kind of a place where people don't really believe in the power of data. They just see the statistic. You could hear the man who is now the president saying, "Na statistic we go chop." That's to tell you how they don't believe in data could inform decision. So this sort of archaic sort of thinking that exists in the society, many people still feel they could rely on the analog way of doing things rather than migrating to it. So sometimes when you are starting some of this startup, it makes sense if you go about doing a robust market research to see if the market actually exists. In research, failure is almost something you have to work with. It's like a coat of many colors you have to learn to put on because sometimes the results doesn't of your experiment doesn't show up or turn up the way you wanted it. And I could tell you if you are doing a PhD research, it's something you have to learn because it comes with a lot of challenges. I remember during my PhD research, really some days I feel so bad. It came to one point I had to just confront my supervisor and say, look, what is really your problem? Is it that you're very difficult to please or what? Like, I'm putting in a whole, like, I remember I barely go out sometimes. And if you know Italy, it's a very fun place. Like, there are so many interesting activities you could get yourself involved in. And I see some of my other colleagues from Sendana and University of Pisa catching phones and cruise and going for hiking and all those other activities. And then I'm just kind of here trying to make these models work. So sometimes I feel so bad, like But at the end of the day, I get to realize that it is not easy for you to produce knowledge that could inform decisions. It has to be robust, it has to be tested, you know, it has to go through the fire so people could be able to rely upon what you have discovered. So failure is common, in different field, especially when you are involving things that has to do with innovation or risk taking or trying to dive into the unknown. So in AI and data science, like I highlighted, you could imagine 85% of the projects don't make it to the production areas. So it's not just about doing the fancy models and interesting stuffs and all that. Like I think I did a post on Medium some time back after I came back from the medical informatics Europe conference. There was this workshop I listened to about talking about biological knowledge and computational knowledge. How do we translate it into reusable knowledge? And it got me thinking that a lot of knowledge are out there, but they are not really translated to, something we could apply to our daily lives. So there is a big gap between what we have on the shelves and what we are putting, into practice in the society. So some of these common reasons why these models or this whole tedious approaches don't get to the field is one, if there is a clear lack of objectives. One of the things privileged to have gone to workshops in open science framework and all that. And if you have time, you could also look at the OSF. You discover that one of the issues we're having is the p hacking, and it's a kind of a big problem where a lot of people at the beginning of their research they don't really have a clear objective of what they are looking for. So by the time they discovered something, then they go and tweak the hypothesis and make it look like that they have discovered this whole thing. They trying to fit in after they have done the project. It's wrong. You should have, from the beginning of the project, you should be able to have explored a lot of literatures and other consult other materials to inform you about the gap that exists in the system. And then you have a clear path on how you want to achieve your aim to fill in that gap. So there is that issue of lack of clear objectives. And like I said, data quality matters a lot because most of the time you get to produce data based on the way the society perceives things. So it's very easy for you to develop some survey materials like questionnaires that actually comes with inherent bias. So in order for you to overcome that kind of thing, you need to really know how and what you're supposed to put into this. What are the measures or metrics that you really want to measure when you deploy these materials in the field? But like the famous case of the criminal justice model that was used in US prior before it was discovered to be flawed. That particular model, they discovered that if you are a dark-skinned or black person, the scoring stuff for the crime was higher compared to a white folk that commits even 2 times the crime of that particular person. It was a kind of a model that predicts if that person is going to do a future sort of crime or something. So at the end of the day, they discovered that the data that was used to train that model with in the first place had that biasness inherent in it. So it's not a fault of the model, but rather the data that was used to inform the decision that has problems. So the data quality plays a very crucial role. Then misalignment. Sometimes the analyst thinks, like I told some of my research collaborators that were working on a project in antibody that as a scientist, I whenever you tell me about data, I just try to, in my brain, I put it into what are going to be the factors or predictors or the independent variable. And then I begin to also think about what are the dependent or target variable. Then the next thing I'm going to begin to think about is to see it in form of a matrix. So I'm going to, think about what sort of manipulations I'm going to do to get you the right model that you want. So that sort of thinking, you could see that sometimes you are thinking in a different way and your collaborators are thinking from a different way. Like the example of that project I just told you about, they wanted to pick some biological signals from that antibody sequence. But again, because of the fact that I have to think from a computational side, so we needed to really do a lot of realignments in order for us to agree on what we should use or what we shouldn't use. So that kind of misalignment could lead to a lot of waste of time and also at the end of the day, waste of resources. So this sort of thing could be a very big issue. So technical debt, again, you can't solve what you don't understand. So most of the time, there is a disconnect between the domain knowledge area and also the experts that are working on this project. Sometimes you will do a model that predicts, for example, diabetes. But if you don't have a good feedback from a nurse or a doctor that works in that area, that model could be out there and nobody is going to even use it. So you need to have that input of the domain expert so they could be able to examine what you have done and what should and what should not be done. There is this interesting research I'm currently working on acute myocardial infarction. And after I finish the first draft of the paper, I have to share it with my group, which have the medical knowledge because I'm a data scientist and my background, like I said, is purely statistics. So they have to examine it and then we have to, go back. So now we are going to go back for the second iteration because we discovered that if we had to go by what we have done, quite very interesting thing, very nice, super visuals. But again, if we are to get it out and get that paper produced, it may have little or no impact to somebody that is in the clinical because they wouldn't know how all this Togon Turenchi works. So what we wanted to do was to make sure we kind of make it in such a way that domain experts could follow. In other words, make sure you focus on what is important when you are doing those things. So the technical depth is very important. Anytime you're working, make sure you have that input of the domain experts to be able to look at it. Scalability issues. Most of the time these days, like I'm still teaching you guys neural networks, for example. You will get to realize that you can't be able to train this model using your normal PC. You just have to scale using the cloud infrastructure or GPUs. So this sort of issues could hinder you sometimes from producing something that you could easily deploy to in the field. So how do you tackle some of these failures? First of all, you must learn from failures. Let me tell you, to be honest with you, one of the reasons issues we have Nigeria, like I said, Nigeria is my country, so I always like to use it as a case study. You would see that Nigeria didn't make any progress from 1960, even though they got their independence in 1960. And the reason being that they didn't learn. They didn't go back to see what was working and what didn't work for them. So you see them keep blaming the British or the colonial masters that left 50, 60, 70 years ago. They still blame them for their mistakes. Now, like I said in one of my TikTok video last time, that if somebody messed up your life, is it enough reason for blaming that person? Why can't you pick up the pieces and fix your life? So this whole idea that we always looking for who to blame, instead of us to take the blame, what have we learned? Why is this? So you see a particular graduate sitting in the house and tell you and say, the reason that I didn't get a job, the government, yes, the government have their issues, but have you really make an attempt? Do you know probably the problem could be the way you structure your CV? It could even be the way you are presenting yourself during the interviews. It could even be that some of the issues you were having was because you didn't study hard in school. So you went and graduated with a grade that automatically removed you from the selection criteria. And these days, let me tell you, AI is helping people to screen CV because imagine a job like in a place like Nigeria that maybe you need 50 people and then millions of people put in for that job. The human resource guys can't have the effort to, start screening all the millions. So what these days you simply do, you just set all the criteria of what you need, and then you train a large language model and ask it to screen these CVs for you. So within 5 minutes, the LLM will screen all the CVs for me, and then the ones that doesn't have these criteria that I need, it removes them out. So automatically, these people are screened. So you see, if as a graduate, you need to ask yourself, what skill have you learned since you left school? And then you see the person only have his or her certificate. Um, for example, I already have a PhD, but that does not make me not to keep learning. I go for conferences, I go for workshops, I attend meetings, I try to follow up on updates. I try to read my articles that are out there. I try to keep myself up to date to know what is happening. The other day I was talking with one of my colleagues about the NCPs, and he was like, he only know of RAGs. And I was like, no, there is an advancement in the LLM stuff that the MCP almost does similar things that the RAGs does and even does it better. And then we started talking, and there was this instant glued, like if we've been talking for ages because I always try to stay up to date about my field, what is happening. So learn from these failures. Don't just sit and complain. Don't just sit and say Nigeria is bad. What can you also do to, make Nigeria better? So all this whole thing of trying to shift responsibilities to others and not taking that blame is a very big thing. So the first thing you need to do is to tell yourself, I goofed, I messed up. Now, once you accept that fact you messed up, the next thing is, how do I now fix it? You see, the difference between a David and a Saul in the Bible is how did both of them handle failure? For a Saul, you messed up. Instead of you to accept your fault, he shifted it and said it was because of the people that he had, the dignities or kind of people around him that made him to go about trying to do the sacrifice, not to wait for someone. But when Nathan came and told David he had sinned by sleeping with somebody's wife and killing that person, what did David do? He went on his knees and started crying and said, Lord, I am wrong. In fact, do whatever you want to do with me. He immediately accepted the blame. He didn't turn and said it's because the woman was bathing in an open space and then his eyes mistake. He didn't do that. He just accepted it and said he messed up. So learn from your failures. What is working and what is not working? And then you begin to now see how to handle that. So that's a very important point. Then foster a learning culture. You have to adopt a kind of a routine. You have to tell yourself, in a week, I want to learn something. In a week, I want to learn something new. Or in a week, I want to do this, I want to do this. Then keep in your cycle people. Like I told one of the student I'm mentoring that you need to first of all, what are the kind of people you aspire to be like? So if you aspired to be somebody like Elon Musk, for example, you have to begin to follow Elon Musk on all the platforms. Follow him on Twitter, follow him on Facebook, follow him on all the places so you could see his update. If you want to be like Chiamanda, for example, in the literature icon, you have to begin to follow her. Then you see what Chiamanda is doing and what he does. For example, from the moment I started listening to the person of Peter Obi, I just liked him. I liked the way he talks, his simplicity, his mode of doing things. And I began to tell myself, like, I love this guy. I need to follow him. So that's how I started following him on all the platforms. I read his posts. when I see a video on him on YouTube, I listen to it. I learned something. I looked at it and said, "This is the kind of leader I should represent. This is the kind of person I want to model." So I don't want to. And when I see a post about the other guys in the other camp, trust me, I don't flip it. I don't even waste time. I don't listen to them because I don't want to be like them. I don't think you understand. So, and not just him, there are people that are admired in the academic world or realm. I also try to follow them. There are institutions that I like to follow their updates, like Oxford and Cambridge and Harvard. I try to follow, read materials that comes from there and some great professors from that end like Andrew Ng now in the when you talk about AI, he's basically he stands out. So most of the time I follow him on LinkedIn, I follow him on Twitter, I follow all his updates. So let us keep this culture of filtering out the kind of information you consume. It's not every information you should consume because these days there is an information explosion. So if you don't filter out what gets into you, you can easily have issues. So make sure you have this robust learning culture. Then implement robust project management. And there is this whole framework that's been determined for good critical thinking, clarity, question, identify, analyze, evaluate, and create. So follow this kind of template in order for you to be able to make your project robust. Like I tell most of my friends, the moment you have any project, think about the project as input and output. First of all, what is going to be the input? What is the output that I intend to produce at the end of my project? Is it just a paper? Is it just a research article? Is it a thesis or something? Focus on these things. So by the time you clearly define what is the input and what is the output, when you begin to work towards it, you begin to put it down. If you looked at the book of Habakkuk 2, there is a very important statement that it makes. And sorry, I'm bringing in the Bible because it's a very important template that guides us in achieving our life goal. There is a word in Habakkuk 2. He said, I will stand upon my watch and listen to when I'm being reproved. Then he said, write the vision clearly, so that he that runneth shall read it. For yet it is for an appointed time. It will surely speak. Even though it tarry, wait for it. That word, very, very important. Write down your visions. Write down your goal. Let me tell you, one of the things I learned coming to Europe was the fact that they plan ahead. So in my university, for example, we have Vision 2045, we have Vision 2050, and so on and so forth. It taught me that these guys plan their life for a long period of time. They don't even know if they are going to live till that period, but they plan it ahead so that even if something happens that is porous and out of their control, they can still be able to, mitigate these things because they already have a laid down structure. But Africa, on the other hand, Nigeria especially, can you say Nigeria has any vision? It was only Yaradua that I knew that came on board and said, this is 6 point agenda. Then he now said Vision 2020. But outside him, all these other guys that comes are very directionless. The Buhari one is completely as if he's walking with his head under his hands. I don't know where he comes from. There is no path, and this Tinubu, you can't even define where he's carrying Nigeria to. And then you see people tell you and say, oh, he's not taking you guys anywhere. He's taking you guys to a path of destruction. They don't have a plan. They don't have anybody planning out and say, look, let's come as a country and define and say, this is a path we want to follow. This is how we want to plan. So in the next 10 years, we want to solve issues in the power sector. In the next 10 years, we want to completely put everywhere we want to connect the whole of Nigeria. In the next 10 years, 15 years, in the next 5 years, we want to handle insecurity. You have to give yourself timelines. Clarify, question, identify, analyze, evaluate, and then you create. So very important. Then invest in continuous improvement. Like I told you, have a reading culture, have a culture of learning. Don't just stop and say, I am okay. I just want the certificate. Because a lot of people think that school ends the moment they graduate. That's why you see a very brilliant student doesn't do very well outside the university or outside the college, because many of them think that success is something that, once you have achieved it, you go and sleep. It doesn't work that way. There is this guys that motivate me a lot. One of them is Ronaldo and the other one is Messi. I like them because they dominate the football for a very long time. But when you see people proud before these guys, they only shine for a year or two and that's all. But from the moment they came on board till today, we still talk about them. You can't write the history of football and you will not mention the name of Ronaldo and you will not mention the name of Messi. They become a pillar right now when you talk about football. And I am very sure the next Ballon d'Or is likely going to even go to Ronaldo because we saw the kind of performance he did. Ronaldo is already in his 40s, but you could see he's still very active and agile. But you are maybe in your 30s and you're already frustrated by the affairs of life. You have given up and everything. You've just left yourself. Like everything should just be determined by how God wants it. No, you must be deliberate in shaping your life. You cannot sit down and be complaining. You have to wake up and take that responsibility. So the next thing is, like I said, in research, failure is something you have to deal with. Sometimes your paper gets rejected. You have to go back again and tweak that paper, see the reason why it's being rejected, and then you submit back again. You don't say because the reviewers commented and then you now change and switch boss and submit to another reviewer. That's not a good practice. You have to know that in research, you have to be open to criticism, especially from your peers. So don't just that, and that's why it's a good thing when you are doing something, you show your peers. Let them look at what you have done. Let them review what you have written. So that way they can be able to give you a genuine feedback, and that way you could impute it and before you even submit it to your final reviewer. Then we also have this, and I really like what we are doing in my university, where if you are writing a grant or so, you have to, submit it for peer review. And then they'll give you a feedback, you update it before you finally submit it for the funder. Now, the same thing in grants. Sometimes you submit for grants and then it fails. I remember when I was looking for a PhD master scholarship, master scholarship and even PhD. I submitted, I attended different interviews. Some didn't, didn't go well. A lot of them didn't go well. Some would, but I just keep doing it because like there's no harm in trying. And then the ones that give me feedback, I try to retrieve and also integrate the feedback in my next iterations. So don't feel discouraged when these things don't turn out the way you want. Because it's just like when you go fishing. Whenever you go fishing and you throw your hook into the hook and line in the water to pick up, any fish could get caught, and sometimes you come back empty-handed. Parents the privilege to grow also in a rural environment or in a village setting. I remember I hunt growing up, and it was a very nice adventure because hunting is really really interesting thing. And I remember there are days we will go out and we will come back without catching anything. We won't get even a mouse or a rat. Like we eat pretty, we eat rats in Benue and all that. But the rats we are talking about is not this dirty sort of rats. No, these are very, very interesting looking, nice looking rats, and all that. But there are days you will not even catch that rat. And there are days we go and you will see different interesting animals, even maybe an antelope or something. But so this whole fact, we don't get discouraged. even when we put in that effort, we still go back the next day. When that place we notice that, okay, we are not getting anything, the next time you will see us planning hunting as if we are planning a business adventure or something. And then I have very interesting friends that were very good hunters, like Igini and all that. They're very skilled in this hunting career then. Anyway, so you would don't get discouraged. Keep trying. Then funding pressures and publication expectation make failure harder to accept. Most times, really, there is a lot of pressure. For me, like I understand this whole thing. It's not easy. Like there are days I wouldn't sleep because I need to meet up deadlines, I need to submit stuff, and I just have to make these things work. So there is this pressure a lot on you, especially as an early career researcher. You just need to, and even if you are doing your master's or PhD, you know that at the end of the day, you have to make publication. I remember during my master's, we needed to make a publication. It's a requirement before you graduate. So it was something we just have to. And then in my PhD as well, it was like 2 or 3 publications prior to graduation. You are under that pressure. You need to get results. So sometimes these whole expectations could put you your adrenaline should be really high and all that. But you need to be calm in the midst of the storm. Very important. Then even leading scientists are facing multiple rejections throughout their career. Remember the guy that invented the light bulb? He said he has to try it for 999 times. It was that last time that he got it. And today, everyone is using the light bulb. You read about the guys that invented the aeroplanes, and other things like penicillin that was mistakenly discovered from mold that were growing in the petri dish. So all these discoveries came, with a lot of uh, effort that these people put on ground. So some of the strategies of handling this failure is you must develop a culture of resilience. Persevere and treat feedback as a tool for improvement. First, when somebody tell you and say this is not how it's supposed to be done, don't pick offense. Don't get angry and say, "Oh, this person is rubbishing me because of my race, because of my tribe, or my ethnicity, or because I'm a woman, or because I'm not rich." You could give 1,001 reason why you feel you were victimized, but rather don't just dwell on all these things. Just look at it objectively from that lens that you could use this feedback as a tool in order for you to improve. Do you know, as corrupt as Nigeria could look like, there are still jobs that nobody can touch it because they know this job cannot be handled by anyhow person. So even in the midst of that corruption, they will have to give it to the person that deserves it. And when they are giving it, they will not look at it and say, this is a Yoruba, this is an Igbo, this is a Hausa, this is a DBO and all that. No, they will give it to that person because they knew that this one, nobody can do that except this person. A good example is medical areas, like a doctor. There are some things now when it comes to when you are sick, you go to the hospital. Do you really want to sit and think and say, "Oh, I don't want a Hausa doctor to treat me, or an Igbo, or an Asian doctor"? You would at that point, you just need to get well, so you don't question the ethnicity of all those people. So, in like manner, take this feedback and use them as a medium to improve. Maintain a growth mindset. Growth is not something you cultivate overnight. It's something that you have to be very, very resilient in order to develop it. I tell a lot of people, focus your eyes on the goal. Remember, there is something that Paul in the Bible said. He that striveth for the mastery is temperate in all things. It's true. Whenever you are striving for excellence, focus your gaze on the goal. Don't just look at the process that you get there. Because if you focus your gaze on the process, I'm telling you, it will not be funny. You know, every day I go out to exercise myself to, run for a period of time and all that. Sometimes when I started jogging, I'll get to that point that this this whole flesh will pop up in my head and say, "Ha, Baba, relax, oh. Why are you even stressing yourself?" But then I will hear this still voice that I believe is the voice of the Holy Spirit. I will say, "You see, no pain, no gain. You have to pass through this thing. You have to run this race. Don't stop." So when I have all these two things running in my mind, I'll tell myself, I'll say, "Look, I have to do this." And then I will put aside all the whole thing. And before you know, I'll see that this thing was not even difficult in the first place. It's just the starting point that I'll be, maybe I should stop. But then I'll just tell myself, look, you have to. So developing a growth mindset, make these things to be part of your life. Make them to be something you could, don't just start and give up on along the way and say, oh no, I can't. The moment I made up my mind to do these classes for you guys, for example, I always come to do it. Like no matter how tired or busy I am, it's just in few cases you see me, I'll cancel the class. I always make sure I teach you guys. Not because I don't have much on my decks. In fact, if you guys know how busy I am. But then I told myself, like every day I keep saying I'll do this. If I don't be purposeful about that, then I'm not going to do it. So be very purposeful about achieving your goal in life. Success in research often comes with persistence and ability to learn from failure. This is coming from University of Melbourne in 2016. Sorry. You see, today we see a lot of researchers are transcending from the classroom or from the labs to producing things that is aiding them to translating into business. But sometimes, like I said, in the entrepreneurship world, one of the things you contend with a lot is high risks because businesses is very, very sensitive. It has to do with capital, which is people's money or even funds from government or grants from other sources. And it won't make sense for you to have these things and you just go and burn it without having any result. So, but you notice a lot of startups, they usually fail. More of them, like I emphasized earlier on, there is a lot of reasons they fail. One of it is, according to CV Insight, is lack of market. The idea may look so beautiful in your head, but you don't even know if people actually need it. Do you know if there is a market for it? You know, there is an Idoma proverb that said the beans doesn't yield to the person that has oil. In Idoma, it's called a Lanon. Meaning when you have oil, your beans doesn't do well. And when you have beans, your oil does you don't always have oil to eat it. So this whole lack, does the lack exist in the first place? Is there a need for what you want to do? So each time you want to start up a business, first ask yourself this crucial question: is there a need for my business? What are the problem I want to solve? Does it truly exist? If it exists, can this problem be monetized? Can this problem be something that could bring in money or can bring result or satisfaction to me? So maybe people just take money I'm telling you this because it happens a lot and I see a lot of people making that mistake in Nigeria. Somebody comes and tell you and say, oh, the business that is thriving these days is agriculture, or maybe storage, or maybe selling Bendal Select and all that. And then the person say, oh, it's true. And then that person saving that money for something. But because of the way this person came and hyped that business, this person wouldn't care to really sit down and analyze it, moving with that whole infatuation of what this person has already said. He would took that money and put it inside that business, and maybe down the line, the person comes up and say, the government policy just crashed everything, and now they have asked to open the borders, and food are flooding everywhere. So storages are beginning to become less profitable. It's because you didn't sit down to analyze the whole thing. You didn't make medium and high and long-term risk plans analysis. You just get these infatuations, and then you just put your money. You see, the thing is, we have to be very, very purposeful in doing things in life. Don't be because people are telling you about cryptocurrency and stock markets, and then you said, "Yeah, I want to put." No, do not invest in what you don't have ideas. Like I used to tell a lot of people that any business I want to go into is something I understand it. Because if it's something I don't understand, I'm completely blind to it. And like the Bible said, a blind man cannot lead another blind person. So make sure you have an idea, the kind of risks, anticipate them. Is there a market that really, when I put this money, I'm going to get my money back? Because the first thing in the laws of business is recovering your capital. If you can't recover your capital over a period of time, then what's the need of putting your money in that business in the first place? So, and that's why, again, you see a lot of people falling victims of Ponzi schemes. Like we saw the last time, the one that happened recently called Setbacks, where a lot of people, I saw some people crying on X, and somebody I think went and ended up. All these things happen because we refuse to learn as a people. We just want this quick money, quick access to things, but it doesn't work that way. If you want to make a robust business, you need to really sit down to understand the process. If you don't know the process, you will certainly have issues along the line. The same thing with career choices. You will see a lot of parents, their children just comes up these days and tell them they just want to study things. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be. Is there really a market for these things? Because a lot have changed. Education is no longer the same as it used to be in the 20th century. So much has changed. Now there is AI that could do virtually almost everything. So there are some courses automatically going to the universities to study them right now is equivalent to waste of time. And I'm not in any way saying your future is deterministic, but that level of hype that we could get maybe some 3, 4, 5 years ago, it's not really there because these days virtually AI could do most of these things for you. So the heavy lifting has been taken away. So what do you need to do? If you want to choose this kind of career choice, you have to sit down and tell yourself, make a very good research. Thank God there is information everywhere. Sit down and research very well about these things and then follow the trend. See where this course is going to lead you. Is it going to take you to a rabbit hole or something? Then you don't want going into it. So look into those things before you jump into it. So like there is a proverb that says you should look before you leap. Running out of cash. Like I said, if this happens to me when I started an entrepreneurial stuff when I came from Kenya, I ran out of cash. I couldn't sustain the business, and then I had to look for a job. So, if you don't want to run out of cash, you have to understand that what you're going to put, is it going to be sustainable? Can you be able to manage yourself? They're not having the right team. This is very, very important. Most of the time, if you don't have the right people that have the same mindset, you can't build an empire without uh, supporting team. There are people that don't see what you are seeing. Their vision is not the same with you. That's why this guy, and I shouldn't forget his name. I think he was born on Christmas Day. Uh, he said a very important quote, not Albert Einstein. Um, Not Neil Armstrong. I'm trying to remember his name. Um, he said if you go far in life, it's because he knew Isaac Newton. I just remember Isaac Newton said, if I go far in life, if I see far in life, it's because I stood on the shoulders of giants. Now, if you want to go far, you want to see far in life, you have to be very purposeful. The kind of friends you put around your life, the kind of people that you entertain, you have to be very, very purposeful about it. In research, for example, if you are working, like I said, in area of this AI, data science stuff, you don't have to listen to a lot of people. There are things you have to, like I said, filter the kind of information that gets into you. Everybody, for example, can't be my friend. And that does not mean I don't like everybody. Like I have to use Buhari at this point. You say I'm for everybody, but I'm for nobody. You can't be available for everyone. So you just have to be purposeful about the people, the kind of people that hang around you, the kind of people that spends your time. You see, time is a very precious commodity. Once it's taken out of your life, you cannot recover it. So how are you spending eternity? It's very, very important because you don't have eternity to spend in this planet. So you just have to move with the right mindset, the people that have the right mindset, the people that have the right thinking faculty with you. You know, like they said, iron sharpens iron. So most people that are not going to contribute anything to your life, it's not like you are discriminating, but there is a way you are talking. These people don't measure up with your level of understanding, so they will try to drag you down. But that doesn't mean you should not relate with them. But like I said, if you're building an empire, you will need the right thing to do that. Now, remember the story of Steve Jobs. He was fired from Apple company, but later he was able to came back, rebrand himself, and came back with these Apple products that today it's everywhere. Today now we talk about iPhones, and you see people always eager to wait the newer version of iPhone that was going to come out. You know, and then we saw the case of the author of Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling. She also faced numerous rejections. Nobody wanted to, you know, uh, script her work and all that, publish her work. But later she was able to get it because of persistence and consistency. So failure is not an end. It is often a stepping stone for your future success. So again, the mindset of most entrepreneurs is that they view failure as a learning opportunities. They don't just try once and stop. No, because it didn't work doesn't mean that it will not work. It's just that it didn't find the right ground to germinate. That's how I always used to see things. Like I always say, there are things that I must have tried to do in Nigeria that doesn't work out. That doesn't mean that it cannot be able to. No, maybe it's because I didn't find the right environment, the right market. So it won't be interesting for me to try it out and see how that could materialize. Resilience and adaptability are crucial to long-term success. So that resilience, like I emphasized earlier, it's very, very important. Now, the bouncing back, life lesson, you must be able to navigate this failure with a lot of resilience, because failure is like a common thing we experience in our personal lives. Don't just allow yourself to be locked up. Allow the emotion to flow. It's okay to cry, when you need to, and learn from the experience of others. Don't just wait to fail. Read about others, see what and how they fail, and how you could be able to apply those things to your own life. Then shift your perspectives. Stop trying to blame people. Stop trying to blame process or systems. Rather, look at your own self as well. What is it you're not doing right? And how would you be able to step up? Many of life's failure are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they give up. I remember the PhD scholarship I got. When it came, the interview, I got the notification for the interview. I've already gotten my employment letter to work in ICANN. So I was like to resume on a Monday, and then I got the interview like on a Friday. And I was talking with one of my friend who was already doing his PhD that period. And I told him about it that I don't want to do it because I'm tired of rejections. And then he was like, Tony, but there is no harm to try. Why don't you just try it? Even if you don't want to, just try it and see. And that's how I agreed to his suggestions, and I tried the interview. And even at the interview, I don't know, maybe the interviewers noticed that I did that. I was putting on my singlet. I was very reluctant doing it, you know. But again, I noticed there was this joy, welcoming spirit and everything. And I was telling my nephew that I've never done an interview where I feel so welcoming like what I just experienced with these guys. They seem to be very happy to have interviewed me, and stuff like that. So when the funding came and I had to leave and all that, I was wondering if maybe I didn't do that interview, I wouldn't have gotten that. So when you're failing, fail forward. Try to turn back setbacks into growth. Seek support. Reach out to your friends, family, and also mental health professionals to gain their perspectives and also emotion to support you. Try to talk to people. Don't keep these things to yourself because it could disorganize you. Take constructive actions. Apply what you have learned and make a new attempt with improved strategy. So always try to improve yourself. That's why I said, don't just sit there complaining. Begin to tell yourself, how do you now imagine if you are a goose that's in the shelf in a market? Why nobody is prizing you? Probably because the goose is dusty, probably because the goose is not having the right aura that customers need. It could be 1001 reason. So most times you see when the shop owners comes in the morning, they will have to dust everywhere, clean up some of the goods so that when people comes, they could see it. So the same thing applies to your life. Polish your life. Nobody is going to blow your trumpet for you. You would be the one to blow your trumpet. So if you're doing something like the brothers of Jesus told him, they said, nobody does the kind of things that you do and do it in hiding. So don't hide yourself. Sell yourself to your world. Try to show people what you can. Now, one of the psychology you could use to manage failure is to cope, learn, and move on. The first thing is practice self-compassion. Always know that you are a human being, and human beings, we are not perfect. We have our flaws. Avoid taking these things personal. Don't say, oh, my friends are succeeding, I'm not succeeding, something is wrong with my life. I know that the African Nigerian thing that somebody could easily come and tell us and say, oh, it's witchcraft. And then you see me say, yes, it's witchcraft because we are always like the Cain mentality. We are shifting blame to another person. If not, I don't see any reason why Cain should kill Abel because Abel wasn't the one that rejected his sacrifice. But he killed him because he wanted to find a sort of satisfaction that and blamed that failure of his sacrifice not accepted on someone. And who could be the culpable person to put it on is his younger brother. His younger brother, can you imagine? He was supposed to protect him, but he puts the blame on him because that was the easy way he could shift and feel this sense of relief on himself. And that's what we do. We blame people that owes us nothing. We blame system that owes us nothing. Instead of us to be grateful, like Thanos said in Infinity War, he said, a grateful universe. We should be grateful that we have life. We should be grateful that, we are not the one that had that accident. You should be grateful the sun is shining on you as a living person and not in your grave. So when you look at all these three things, you will understand that that failure does not mean that is the end of your life. It's just a step for you to retry again and to come back stronger. Learn from your mistakes. Reflect on what went wrong. Identify the lessons apply them moving forward. Now, don't always sit and do nothing, because that's where the problem comes. Rather, try to spot out what is working and what has not, and then you review them and see how to. Now, cultivating a growth mindset is very, very important. And I keep stressing it again. Believe in your abilities to grow through your efforts, the feedbacks you get, and continuous learning. Keep learning, keep trying to refine it. Somebody like there are people that are born with this talent, and there are people that developed it from continuous training, continuous learning. There are people, that when they see something just once, they have this photographic memory. They could retain it. But there are people that have to read 3, 4, 5 times in order to retain that which they read. But all of them doesn't mean they are not humans. We all are the same. It's just the level at which we absorb things into it. So develop a growth mindset and know that anything growth will not come easy. It has to go through the process in order for it to germinate. Now, I talk about resilience because it's very, very crucial. In order for you to be resilient, you must have this mentality to say you will not give up. Like I used to tell myself, between you and the devil should be the one to be tired. You shouldn't be tired of trying. That's why you are alive. You shouldn't be tired of trying because you are made in the image of God. And one of the characteristics of God is long suffering. He's able to be patient with the process in order to get the best out of the dongs. He was able to go through the pain of the cross just to make sure he rectified the silly mistake of man in Eden. So when you look at all these processes and what God has to take the bullet for us, why shouldn't you also do the same for yourself? So you must build that mindset of resilience, you know, even in your own bodily forms. Don't just sit down, do nothing, exercise. When you're diagnosed with diseases, you can change it. Like I told one of my sisters last time that a lot of people don't take some of these things serious, like exercise. They just leave themselves. But it's very important that 10, 20 minutes of exercise you could do, it could add up to your health and it could help you to be able to avoid certain diseases that could have consequences in your life. So you see, don't just give up. Continue to push hard. Set realistic goals. Define a clear goal from the beginning of your project. See, this is, like I said, set up what is the input, what is going to be the output. And then from there, you could now begin to design how you're going to achieve these goals that you have set out. Be realistic to yourself. It's not everything you could do. You can't build a perfect system, but you could start from something. You could start from laying the blocks, and from laying the blocks, from starting the foundation, you could lay the blocks and you could build. So don't just start this big thing and say, I want to do this. It's good to dream, but you have to take the first step. Achievable objectives you need to create. You don't just go about, like I said, saying things that is not achievable. If you want to finish your PhD in, let's say, 3 years' time, you can't just be singing it to yourself. I want to finish my PhD and I want to present in world class conference, international conference, national conference. I want to have presented in this workshop. I want to have published in this journal. If you want to publish in high impact journals, you know that it comes with a price. So you have to, from the day one you start your PhD, you must be consistent in everything you are doing so you can be able to get your paper to such platforms. And if you're an entrepreneur, you can't just wake up and say, I want to be a Dangote or I want to be an Otedola or something. You have to follow through the process. You have to conquer a certain domain before you could build to become like these people. Minimize discouragement. Like I said, be careful with the kind of people you hang out with. There are people, the moment you're trying to tell them about the big dream, They just shut you out. They say, no, it's not for you. You can't do it. Avoid those kind of people that come with negative energy. Once you notice this person is always, the energy around them is always negative, just remove them. There are people I knew some years back. They always complain. I remember entering University of Jos. There was this guy that, ordinarily I like to go to people that had the experience before me so I could be able to get one or two tips. And the first thing he told me, maths department, they fail student a lot. They don't, like the initial thing he told me about maths department, I was already like, oh my God, it seems I've gotten myself in hell. There was this sort of negativity this guy carries. And I remember he almost implicated me during Maths 101 exam because he was sitting at my back and he was like, I should write it for him. And when I gave him the first one, the supervisor just threw her eyes. And the next one, she came and said she would sign my script. I kept pleading. And I think my God just worked for me that day. I didn't get, she forgave me. And that was how, since then, I made up my mind. I'm always going to sit at the front. So if you know me in University of Jos, you know that during exams, I don't sit at the back. I'm always at the front seat where the supervisor would see me and nobody would disturb me. That was not because I was selfish, but because I knew like this exam, I don't want to play with my future. So it was very, very important to me. But what I'm trying to say is there are people that are very negative. They never see anything positive about life. Like I always say, we do criticize Nigeria here, but we always proffer solution because we want Nigeria to work. I'll never be happy if Nigeria is failing. I want to see Nigeria that is doing well. I want to see Nigeria that is excelling. For example, now when Nigeria play football and they win, I'm so excited. When Nigeria does something great, even if it's not that person not related to me or anything, and it gets to my ear, I celebrate it and I'm happy genuinely, and I learned from that person's story. But this Nigeria that keeps bringing negative energy to us, it's not right. So always minimize the discouragement. Try to tell yourself the positive thing. Then also celebrate small wins. Acknowledge increments progress to sustain motivation and reinforce positive habits. Celebrate small wins. What is it that is in your life that is working? It could even be the divine health you have. Oh God, I thank you because today I'm alive. Oh, you could just look at it. Oh, I thank you because today at least I've eaten. Still little things because there are people that can't eat even though they have the money. There are people that slept last night, they didn't wake up. They died in their sleep. But God helps you to wake up every day and you think that's not good enough. Celebrate small wins. When you worked on a particular objective in your project, you achieved a particular result. Oh, you said, wow, I'm happy I did this. Tell yourself, there is this proverb in, I think, Hausa that said, when the lizard fell from the wall, nobody tells it, well done. He nodded his head and said, well done, well done, well done. He hailed himself because nobody wants to tell him he did well. So learn to appreciate that small win in your life. Don't look at it and say, oh, it's nothing and all that. Now, let's look at some brief success stories. The first one comes from IBM Watson. When they first started it, it was like a comedy show and all that they started. And it was faced with a lot of skepticism and technical challenges when they decided to say they want to apply it to the things that has to do with daily lives. But they didn't stop there. They continue to improve. They continue to persist. And today we see them having influence in different sectors, ranging from health, finance, and so on and so forth. We all know as a statistician or data scientist, one of your dreams is how you could make it to work in IBM. But they have a story. They didn't just always get that brand. It comes from a series of challenge and working hard. How about the Airbnb? It also has its own challenge. The owner started and it came with a lot of setback. A lot of people, were having these issues of transacting business with them. So there were a lot of rejections, but they continued to push hard and to find strategies that could work. And today, almost anywhere you go, you always want to look for an Airbnb where you could just lay your head and rest because it's cheaper maybe than going to a hotel or something. Now, in conclusion, embracing failure as a path to growth because the greatest teacher is failure. According to Star Wars great Yoda, and I think growing up watching the Star Wars, it's one interesting thing. And if you know Master Yoda in the Star Wars, he said the greatest failure teacher is failure because failure is not to be feared. It is a vital part of journey towards success. Each setback provides us with an opportunity to reflect, to learn, and to improve. So the take-home message is reframing failure as a teacher helps us to move forward with greater wisdom and strength. So always know that you are the best of your kind. Always know that you are a special person. Like there is this scripture, I think in Second Peter also, that said, "Ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a peculiar nation that have been called forth out of darkness into his marvelous light," or something. So you are a special person. Don't allow anyone to look down on you. You always have to know that you are coming from a root that is having a lot of crisis, a lot of disadvantage, especially when you're coming from Nigeria. The competition at local level, national level, not talk of international level, is very fierce. So if you have made it this far, I just want you to tap yourself at the back and tell yourself, well done. And this is not the best of you, because the best of you is yet to manifest. So be courageous, be bold, and be determined to face